Yano, Atkins, Bell, Berry Hill, Block, Blumenfield, Bonilla, Bradford, Brownlee, Buchanan, Butler, Calderon, Campos, Carter, Cedillo, Chesbro, Conway, Cook, Davis, Dickinson, Donnelly, Ing, Fior, Fletcher, Fong, Fuentes, Furutani, Gaines, Galgiani, Garrick, Gatto, Gordon, Garrell, Grove, Hagman, Halderman, Hall, Harkey, Hayashi, Hernandez, Hill, Huber, Weso, Huffman, Jeffries, Jones, Knight, Lara, Logue, Lowenthal, Ma, Mansour, Mendoza, Miller, Mitchell, Monning, Morrell, Nestande, Nielsen, Norby, Olson, Pan, Perea, V. Manuel Perez, Portantino, Silva, Skinner, Smythe, Solorio, Swanson, Torres, Valadeo, Wagner, Wykowski, Williams, Yamada, Mr. Speaker.
Colleagues, a quorum is present. We asked everyone present in the gallery and in the chamber to please stand for the prayer. We ask our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos, to offer today's prayer.
Good morning. Lord, when the three Hebrew teenagers, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were thrown into the fiery furnace by the king, you, Lord, did not deliver them from the fire. You delivered them through the fire. They walked and sang in the fire and came out without even the smell of smoke on them. They weren't worried. They knew everything was going to be all right. You didn't take away their problem. You gave them the power and the strength to handle it. Protect us from the fires we face, Lord, and give us your strength to overcome them. And bless this great nation now as we begin to celebrate its Independence Day and always. Amen.
We ask everyone present to remain standing and join us in the flag salute. We ask Assemblymember Huber to lead us in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Thursday, June 30, 2011. The Assembly met at 9 a.m. Armed with Fellow Moss Speaker Pro Tem Assembly Presiding Chief Clerk Dawson Wilson at the desk.
Mr. Allen moves and Ms. Conway seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentation of petitions, there are none. Introduction and references of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Motions and resolutions, the absences for the day will be deemed read and printed in the journal. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker, request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assemblymember Dickinson to have guests and photographers on the floor.
Without objection.
Request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 45.5 to allow Assembly members Bell, Conway, Halderman to speak in adjourn in memory.
Without objection.
Pursuant to Rule 96, request unanimous consent to refer bills to committee. The following bills to committee: SB 517 from Appropriations Committee to Rules Committee, SB 855 from Governmental Organization Committee to the Rules Committee.
Without objection.
And at the request of the author, please remove file item 61, SB 860 from the consent calendar.
Without objection, clerk will note.
And at the request of the author, please send or move or file item 56, SB 900, to the inactive file.
Without objection, clerk will note.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a few guest introductions. Mr. Dickinson has a unique guest to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I am distinctly pleased today to be able to introduce one of my very favorite constituents, Poppy, the official mascot of the California State Fair. There's Poppy. Where's Poppy going? Poppy joins us today to remind us of California's 158th Annual State Fair, scheduled here in Sacramento from July 14th through July 31st at Cal Expo. This year's theme is "The Fun Just Got Bigger," and it offers a wonderful variety of attractions, competitions, and educational exhibits. According to Poppy, the fair's exhibits, competitions, and awards are all important chapters in California's history. It's a showcase for our state's agricultural heritage, our industrial and technological innovations, and our robust entrepreneurial work. So please join Poppy in encouraging all Californians to take time to enjoy the 2011 State Fair and savor all the talent and treasures that our wonderful state has to offer. Now, I want to mention, because I know you care about this, Mr. Speaker and members, that tickets are on sale in the Capitol today from 10 to 5 in room 112. They'll be available July 7th in room 3191 from 10 to 5, and on July 13th from 10 to 5, also in room 115, and of course tickets are available through other outlets. So I also want to mention that Nora Bartosik and Brian May, the General Manager and Assistant General Manager of Cal Expo, are here. But please, once again, let's welcome our very special guest, Poppy.
Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Yes, also one more motion to waive Rule 45.5 to allow Ms. Assemblymember Olson to adjourn in memory.
Without objection. Okay, I would like to ask everyone present to join me in welcoming some equally special guests who do not have as much fur, and those are my father and my nephew, Damien and Joseph, who are in the gallery. Please join me in welcoming them. Business on the daily file. Second reading. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 381, 423, 117, 134, 214, 555, 513 with amendments, 249, 276, 668, 903 with amendments, 244 with amendments, and Senate Bill 507 with amendments.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments will be deemed adopted. We're now going to move to items on the concurrence file. File item 15, AB 222. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 222 by Assembly Committee on Agriculture and Act relating to agriculture.
Okay. Passed temporarily. File item 18, AB 454. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 454 by Assembly Member Silva and Act relating to protective orders.
Mr. Silva.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 454 is intended to ensure that persons protected by a restraining order receive actual notice of any special hearing set to terminate or modify the restraining order. Thank you. Senate amendments set to default notice provision of 16 days. AB 454 has not received any votes in opposition, and I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 55, no 0. The measure passed. Or Senate amendments are concurred in. Mr. Calderon, you are recognized.
Another adjourn in memory, Mr. Speaker. Move to raise to suspend 45.5 to allow the Speaker to adjourn in memory.
Without objection. File item 20, AB 1305. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1305 by Assembly Member Huber and Act relating to descendants estates.
Ms. Huber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. AB 1305 raises the probate code thresholds for the disposition of a small estate without the need for formal probate administration. Senate amendments merely change the level to more closely track inflation. I urge your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 56, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. Okay, Assembly third reading. File item 25, ACA 6, for purposes of amendment. Clerk will read.
Assembly Constitutional Amendment number 6 with amendments by Assembly Member Gatto.
Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry for being unprepared. I have amendments to ACA 6, a measure to reform our state's initiative process. These amendments come at the request of myself and Assemblymember Smythe to clarify that the provisions of ACA 6 do not apply to any future initiative that would reduce taxes, something very important to both of us. I'd like to thank Assemblymember Gatto and his staff for their willingness to work across the aisle to develop good public policy. With that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote on these amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Hagman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We do have opposed on these amendments and respectfully ask for a roll call vote.
So Mr. Hagman has asked for a roll call vote. This is majority of those present and voting. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 40, noes 15. The amendments are adopted. Out to print and back on file. File item 28, ACR 62. Clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent resolution 62 by Assemblymember Brownlee and others relative to Read Across the California Month.
Ms. Brownlee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. According to the National Center of Education, 23% of California's citizens lack basic literacy skills. The U.S. Department of Education's research shows a direct correlation between adults who read to children and their academic success. Children who are read to at least 3 times a week by a family member or mentor are twice as likely to be in their top academic tier. Additionally, the ability to read gives young people the necessary tools to pursue their academic and professional goals. ACR 62 will proclaim March of 2012 and each year thereafter as Read Across California Month. This resolution will bring awareness of the benefits of reading and reserve a month out of the year to remind Californians of the importance of reading as an essential part of education. We need to encourage reading and academic success in California and across our nation. ACR 62 addresses reading deficiency and challenges children and parents to discover the many pleasures and joys of reading. I ask for an aye vote and would like to open the first roll for co-authors.
So Ms. Brownlee has asked that the first roll be opened for co-authors. Seeing no further questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. This is for co-authors, members. This is for co-authors. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Let the record reflect that this measure has 54 co-authors. Without objection, we can take a voice vote on this measure. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. File item 29, ACR 63. Clerk will read.
Assembly concur resolution 63 by Assemblymember Mansour relative to the Veterans of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces Day.
Mr. Mansour.
Thank you. I rise today to present ACR 63, which designates June 19, 2011 as Veterans of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces Day, in honor of all the veterans of the Armed Forces of South Vietnam. Thousands of veterans of the Republic of Vietnam now reside in California and have been resilient and successful in their contributions to our state. These soldiers endured great sacrifice to defend freedom against communist tyranny during the Vietnam War. Hundreds of thousands of South Vietnam armed forces lost their lives in the war, and more than 1 million soldiers were injured. Many were sent to re-education camps and spent years in captivity, many dying before even being released. ACR 63 honors the living and fallen soldiers who fought in the Army of the Republic of Vietnam and have made countless contributions as U.S. citizens. I also want to recognize and thank Assemblyman Jose Solorio, who is a joint author. and I would like to open the roll for co-authors and urge an aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Solorio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of this and applaud our joint author, Assemblymember Mansour, for bringing this forward. I would tell you that Vietnam War memorials would not tell the whole story if they did not also honor the sacrifice of the veterans of the Republic of Vietnam who risked their lives fighting for freedom alongside with us. Out of respect for their devotion to the cause of freedom, the United States welcomed thousands of Vietnamese refugees to our shores and invited them to become citizens. And now, these 4 decades later, many of those veterans who have made California their home have also risen to the peak of American success. ACR 63 says to Vietnamese Americans throughout the state, "We will never forget your contributions then, and we are grateful for your contributions now." I ask for your aye vote.
Seeing no further questions or debate, Mr. Mansour and Mr. Solorio have asked that the first roll be open for co-authors. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and let the record note that this matter has 56 co-authors. Without objection, we can take a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The measure is adopted. Colleagues, we're going to go back to the concurrence file for file item 15, which is AB 222. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 222 by the Assembly Committee on Agriculture and Act relating to agriculture.
Ms. Galgiani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 222 is the Agriculture Committee's omnibus bill, which removes outdated reporting dates. The Senate amendments merely adds it to existing law, the 50th District Agricultural Association, as an additional contracting option for the employees of its Joint Powers Authority. The bill has no opposition and has received no votes. I respectfully ask for your aye votes on concurrence.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 61, no 0. The Senate amendments are concurred in. File item 19, AB 741. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 741 by Assemblymember Huffman and others, an act relating to wastewater.
Mr. Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a bill that passed out of this body with unanimous support and out of the Senate on consent. It allows local agencies to provide voluntary financing to private property owners to fix aging and dilapidated septic and sewer infrastructure. And I respectfully, the amendments in the Senate were technical code cleanup, so I respectfully request your aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 61, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We're going to move to the Senate third reading file. All other items on concurrence shall be passed and retained. Senate third reading file item 37. This is SB 235. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 235 by Senator Negrete McCladden, act relating to water.
Mr. Gordon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 235 would allow water conservation districts to reduce the number of directors on their boards in order to allow them to reduce their costs and operate more efficiently. Currently, a water conservation district would be required to hold a district-wide election if they wanted to reduce the size of the board. This is both very costly and impractical. SB 235 would allow a district to reduce the size of their board membership from 7 to 5 with a 2/3 vote of the board. SB 235 provides adequate public notice and protections to prevent abuse of this authority. Further, it protects the voters' rights to vote since the action of reducing the board is subject to referendum. This bill is supported by ACWA and the California Special Districts Association, and I respectfully request an aye vote.
Seeing no questions or debate, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 45, noes 11. Measure is adopted. File items 38 through 39 pass and retain. File item 40, SB 62. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 62 by Senator Liu, an act relating to local government.
Mr. Davis.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to pass and retain on this item.
Pass and retain. File items 41 through 42, pass and retain. File item 43, SB 914. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 914 with amendments by Assemblymember Knight.
Mr. Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. This amendment is the result of discussions during the Public Safety Committee's hearing on the bill. Language makes it clear that law enforcement may rely on established exceptions to the warrant requirement when searching an arrestee's portable electronic device. The amendment has the support of both the chair and myself. I ask that this bill go out to print and back on file.
Okay, with no objections, we can take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Out to print and back on file. File items 44 through 47 pass and retain. File item 48, SB 614. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 614 with amendments by Assemblymember Atkins.
Mr. Wesso.
Yes, Mr. Speaker and members, these amendments to SB 614 strike the current contents of the measure and insert urgency language to help school districts establish a pertussis immunization deadline that addresses a significant statewide delay in pupil immunization rates. The urgency clause was unanimously approved in Rules Committee this morning. I ask for unanimous consent for the amendments to be sent out to print and for the measure to be placed back on file.
Okay, seeing no objection, or with no objection, we're going to take a voice vote on these amendments. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Out to print and back on file. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring the following bill to committee, and that is file item 48, SB 614, Senator Kehoe by Atkins, to the Health Committee. Clerk will note. File items 49 through 57 pass and retain. Okay, we're now at the second day consent calendar. Does any member wish to remove an item from the second day consent calendar? Seeing and hearing none, clerk will read.
Assembly concurrent Resolution 61 by Assemblymember Hayashi relative to California Nurses Week.
Clerk will open the roll on the consent calendar. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 16-0. The consent calendar is adopted.
Senate concurrent Resolution 46.
Ayes 16-0.
Senate Bill 918.
Ayes 16-0.
Senate Bill 458 with urgency.
Ayes 16-0 on the urgency. Ayes 16-0 on the matter.
Senate Bill 491.
Ayes 16-0.
And Senate Bill 713.
Ayes 16-0. Colleagues, session schedule is as follows. Monday, July 4th is a holiday, Independence Day. Tuesday, July 5th, we have floor session at 12 noon. All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. We're now going to move to requests to adjourn in memory. The following members were previously granted approval to adjourn in memory today. Mr. Bell, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker and members, I would like to adjourn in memory of Richard Patterson today. He was one of the great leaders of our Valley Medical Center in San Jose. He was a friend and colleague and literally saved countless people's lives. If you knew Richard Patterson, then the loss is as devastating to you as it is to me. Richard Patterson died peacefully, surrounded by his family and friends, to a personal rendition of his favorite song. He led the peer support counseling program at the Santa Clara Valley Medical Center for the past 15 years. He was a tireless advocate for individuals with disabilities, member of our public authority for in-home support services, and longtime co-chair of a Disability Advisory Commission for the City of San Jose. Despite his disabilities, Richard led adventurists with disabilities on glider rides, whale watching, and scuba trips. He proved to people with disabilities the possible was not the impossible. The Valley Medical Center Foundation and all who knew him are forever proud to be part of his legacy. I urge adjournment in his memory.
Ms. Conway.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And thank you, members. I ask that we adjourn in memory today of a hero who is being laid to rest, almost as we speak. Lance Corporal Jared C. Verbeek, a brave 22-year-old Marine from Visalia, died of injuries he received while on patrol in Afghanistan. He was a member of the Marine Corps' military police and helped train Afghani law enforcement. He was a fourth-generation service member who enlisted shortly after graduating from high school. He was deployed in March for his second tour of duty. Jared received numerous awards during his service, including a Purple Heart. In fact, he's being nominated for a second Purple Heart. Jared leaves behind his wife of 2 years, Vanessa, their young son, Jacob, and his parents and 2 sisters. Just before he left, Jared's mother asked him not to go, saying that he was her only son. He told his mother, "It'll always be somebody's son." Members, as we adjourn for our Independence Day holiday weekend, I ask you to remember Jared and how he put service above self to protect our freedom.
Thank you, Ms. Conway. Ms. Halderman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I ask today that we adjourn in memory of a great man, Pastor George Lee Johnson of Fresno, who is always called G.L. Johnson. He led the People's Church of Fresno for 45 years. He died Wednesday of bile duct cancer at the age of 83 and was surrounded by his family until the end. He is survived by Jackie Johnson, his wife of 61 years, Cindy Pine, his daughter, and his 2 granddaughters, Sheress and Jill. Pastor Johnson grew up in Houston, was the son of a Baptist minister, and came to Fresno in 1961 to work as Associate General Director of the Latin American Orphanage. In 1963, he became the pastor of People's Church, which grew rapidly under his leadership to become the largest in central San Joaquin Valley. He inspired and uplifted thousands of people in our community, including me. He was a tireless advocate for the state of Israel, and he was a religious and spiritual mentor to many, including those who did not share his faith. He loved Fresno. Please join me in honoring the life of a great man, Pastor G.L. Johnson.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I rise to request that we adjourn in memory of Gladys Weston Strickland, who died Wednesday, June 29th, after a long battle with cancer. Ms. Weston Strickland was the mother of former Speaker of the Assembly, Herb Weston, and played an active role in her community and her son's life. She was well known as a volunteer and a champion of volunteering. She was a 2-time breast cancer survivor who battled the disease with great dignity and participated in support groups and counseling for older women. Ms. Weston Strickland was 79 years of age, and our thoughts and prayers are with Herb and his family. I ask that you join me in adjourning in her memory.
Thank you, members. Please bring those names to the desk to be printed in the journal. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. No, I'm sorry. Mr. Allen, you are recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 79, and at the request of the author, I request unanimous consent to withdraw AB 1279 Fletcher from the governor's desk and returned to the Senate for further action.
Without objection. Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is with sadness that I adjourn in memory of Ellis M. Cogdill, Jr., father of my friend and former state senator and Assemblyman Dave Cogdill. Sadly, Ellis passed away on June 26th after being diagnosed with cancer just a few days before. He was born in Stanberry, Missouri, where he and his family lived until Ellis enlisted in the U.S. Navy at age 17. In 1949, Ellis was discharged from active duty and shortly after met the love of his life, Viola Cruz, his devoted wife of over 61 years. A few months later, Ellis was called to serve again during the Korean conflict. In 1957, Ellis, Viola, and their 3 children, including Dave Cogdill, moved to California, settling in San Bernardino. Ellis worked as a meat cutter for Stater Brothers Markets for 33 years. In 1962, he was called to be a deacon at Emmanuel Baptist Church, where he diligently served the Lord for many years. After retirement, Ellis and Viola moved to Madera and were active at the First Southern Baptist Church. In 2005, Ellis and Vi moved to Modesto, living at Friendly Village Mobile Home Park and attending First Orangeburg Avenue Baptist Church, then the North Modesto Church of God. Ellis loved to travel, spend time with his family and friends, help those in need, or do just about anything that was productive and active. He valued work and never shirked a duty or a task. He is survived by his wife and sons, Dave and Jim, and daughter Diana, daughters-in-law Stephanie and Lisa, grandchildren David and Carrie, Megan and Mike, Ryan and Brandon, Karma, Lauren, Joel, and Monche, and great-grandchildren Connor, Kathleen, Xiomara, Christian, and Ashton. He will be fondly remembered and dearly missed. Please join me in adjourning in his memory. And for those of you who are also friends and former colleagues of Senator Dave Cogdill, please express your condolences to he and the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olson. Mr. Davis, you are recognized.
Mr. Speaker and members, I just wanted to add on and join in the Speaker's resolution memorializing the life of Gladys Wesson Strickland, the mother of former Speaker Herb Wesson and councilman to Los Angeles City Council, and wanted to say that she served not only as the mother of the Wesson family, but to many of those of us in political life in Los Angeles, and always could be seen very active, working not only in Herb's efforts, but in community efforts in general, and was specifically very involved in the senior citizen activities and initiatives in our city. And so I thank you for the opportunity to also register our support of this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. And members, please bring those names to the desk to be printed in the journal. I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Allen moves, Ms. Conway seconds. That this House stand adjourned until Tuesday, July 5th at 12 noon. Quorum call is lifted.